Good evening, my name's Jason Debly, and tonight's whiskey review is a single malt scotch from the Speyside region. And it's from a distillery that everybody knows, Glenfiddich, or Glenfiddich. A couple of my friends like to pronounce it that way. Who knows the proper pronunciation without a visit to the distillery in Scotland, the Speyside region in particular. Glenfiddich is an enormously well-known brand. It's whiskey. Glenfiddich 12-year-old is probably one of the most widely distributed 12-year-old single malts in the world, if not the most distributed, and also most sold. And in the past on this channel I haven't reviewed a lot of Glenfiddich or Glenlivet. Not a huge fan of the 12-year-old. And as for Glenlivet, the 18 I like, but that's about it. The 12 actually is better than the Glenfiddich 12. But I've shied away from this distillery because in general, its output is so massive in the millions of gallons of spirit a year. I kind of wonder if the quality is there. I know I'm being a bit of a snob, but I'm looking for good whiskey, good value for money. The price point on Glenfiddich has always been generally competitive. This is a 15-year-old single malt for $100 in Canada. The US, I'm guessing around $70. For a 15-year-old single malt, that's, reasonable on the face of it if it has the quality to back it up. In terms of quality, so the age statement is 15 years old, so we should expect something good. The alcohol by volume is only 40%, and you're paying $100 in Canada and $70 in the US, so that's a letdown. We've got artificial color. They're using E150A to keep it consistent blend to blend, and like most major producers, they insist that doesn't affect flavor. I disagree. Moving on, chill filtration is going on also, so this is not what I would call a craft small batch malt by any means. That being said, I am familiar with the 15-year-old Glenfiddich Solera, and I should make a mention about what is meant by Solera. So if you go on their website, they say this whiskey is basically in a massive vat or ton, and in that vat, which has been around since 1998 when it was initially filled with at least 15-year-old spirit from the Glenfiddich distillery, from that vat they top it up frequently, but as they go in to take out to make a bottling or a batch, they are probably, the existing whiskeys in there might date back to 98, so the implication is you're getting more than a 15-year-old. Okay, and that's a production style that you see in Spain and Portugal for sherry. So they say this process is inspired by Portugal and Spain's sherry production. So that's what is meant by Solera. My personal experience with this particular release is 10 years ago. I had quite a bit. I would buy it here and there, and I was impressed 10 years ago. It was a light classic single malt from the Speyside region, and when I say classic, it's like notes of honey, orange, some complexity. It was good value for money. It wasn't super expensive then either, probably 10, 15 years ago, maybe more like 15 years ago. And it was similar in style to Craigenmore 12-year-old or Glenmorangie Nectared, or in those days that was 12 years old. So this Glenfiddich 12-year-old or 15-year-old single malt, or Solera, it had complexity, good price, and very nice flavor profile 15 years ago. So I thought I would revisit it and see if it still stands up today. Got the fancy packaging. And I bought this a week ago, and I did try it. See, it's been opened. But we're going to try it again. I haven't tried it earlier this evening. I just thought I would do it kind of impromptu in front of you. There we go. Okay. Oh, a little bit about wood management. You've got ex-sherry casks, obviously. There's New American oak going on, and they also use some European oak. So on the nose, it's pleasant. I get honey, dandelions. Yeah, it's nice. Not incredible, but nice. Speaks of quality, but light. Let's see what it tastes like. Apple juice comes to mind. Honey. Maybe sandalwood, some apricot, white grapes, a little bit of raspberry. So when I opened this a week ago, I was not impressed. And I didn't want to tell you that at the beginning of the video. So I thought I would open it, let it oxidize a bit, try it tonight, a week later, see if it's any better. And the answer is no. The finish is short. You're left with just as it tastes a little bit young. This, like in a blind tasting, I would never guess this is a 15-year-old single malt. For a 15-year-old single malt, it should be more refined. The flavors should be a little more forward. There's a kind of a raw note to this, kind of like pearl onions, not in a good way. Not impressed here. 15 years ago, I really liked this bottle. This is nothing like Craigmore 12. It couldn't hold a candle to it. Or Glenmorangie, 12 years old back then. Or I think now it's 14 years old, and that's better than this. But this is a real disappointment. And now that it's approached $100 a bottle in Canada, and it's about $70 in the US, it's not worth the money. It's worth about $50 a bottle. This is just not working for me. And I'll take one more sip here. Yeah, it's just unexceptional. Like I said, some tangerine, maybe a bit of lime, some brackish water, minimal smoke. It's just not working, and I got a little bit of water here in a tumbler. I don't know, we're getting desperate here now, guys and gals. I think I did stats on my channel. There are like 98% of viewers are male and 2% female. Gotta work on that. Water just doesn't take it anywhere. Big disappointment. It's got kind of a raw note on the finish. For a 15-year-old single malt, like when you get 15 years old, like 14-year-old Oban, it's a dream. I've got to review Oban. I haven't in a long time. It's a great single malt, not super cheap. It's about, in Canada, $115, worth every penny. And the other thing that's interesting about Oban is it's not overly produced. They have a limited supply of water each year they get from the municipality, and they get no more. So they've got a limited production run, is my understanding. And it really seems to force them to have good quality. Glenfiddich, 15-year-old Solera, I don't care if they're borrowing from the Spanish or the Portuguese. They're not borrowing the best from Spain and Portugal in terms of production, because this is mediocre, boring, sawdust, in shop class with a little bit of tang. I mean, this is just not working. That's my review. Thanks for tuning in. I was looking at, speaking of stats for the channel, we've got 4,500 subscribers. I'm flattered. And over 1 million views. I just cracked over 1 million views. I think like 1,050,000. Good stuff. I'm never going to sell you anything. Don't pitch anything. I was approached to do a whiskey festival recently, and I just felt like they would be compromising me. So initially I thought I'd do it, and then I said no. So I'm not going to do that. You know, we're always on a search for good quality whiskey, and a viewer wrote in on one of my previous reviews and asked me for like a top 5 single malts under $100. And I'm going to work on that. I think we need that, you know. I could, off the top of my head, tell you, now if you're in America, you know, you can probably pick up Oban 14 under $100, like in New Hampshire it's about 65. Buy Oban in a heartbeat. You know, I'm trying to think of some others. Highland Park 12, classic, good price, solid performer. You know, and then the list gets, I do like Glenmorangie Quinta Reuben. That's a good value, well under $100. And, you know, but the list is short because it seems lately, at least in Canada, $100 is a starting point for a decent 12-year-old single malt. We can't have that, you know, prices are getting crazy. But anyway, I will go. Thanks for tuning in. Don't know what I'll do next week, but I'm going to work on that top 5. Take care.